Hello friends, welcome to my channel Cryptic Wisdom. So friends, let's start today's story. The moon hung high in the sky, casting a silver light over the ancient ruins of a once majestic monastery. Stones lay scattered across the ground, and the walls, now broken and weathered, whispered secrets of times long past. The air was cool and still, carrying with it a sense of mystery and timelessness. Among these ruins, a lone figure moved quietly, the silhouette of a man who, by all outward appearances, had nothing to his name but a simple loincloth. Yet, his presence radiated a peace that could not be bought or sold. This man was Nagarjuna, the great Buddhist saint, a philosopher whose teachings transcended material wealth. His fame had spread far and wide, not for grandiose sermons or riches, but for his profound wisdom and remarkable detachment from worldly things. Despite living in absolute simplicity, there was one possession he carried that seemed out of place: a golden begging bowl gifted to him by a king who had become his disciple. The bowl, polished to a soft glow under the moonlight, was a constant companion on his travels. But to Nagarjuna, the gold meant nothing. The value of the bowl lay not in its material worth, but in the deeper lesson it represented: the emptiness of attachment, even to precious objects. That night, Nagarjuna sought refuge among the ruins, planning to rest after a long day of walking through villages and forests. He found a spot near one of the ancient columns, where the roof had collapsed, allowing him a clear view of the stars. He sat cross-legged, meditating, his mind as serene as the night itself. However, not far from where he rested, hidden in the shadows of the crumbling stone walls, a thief watched him with keen eyes. The man had been following Nagarjuna since the afternoon, drawn by the sight of the gleaming golden bowl that the saint carried so carelessly. To the thief, it seemed an irresistible prize, a fortune that could change his life in an instant. The thief's heart raced as he crept closer, staying low behind a fallen pillar. He had stolen many things before, from jewels to coins, but never had he encountered a prize as tantalizing as this. The bowl was worth more than he could have ever imagined. And yet, as he watched the saint sit so peacefully, the thief felt an odd hesitation. Something about the calmness in Nagarjuna's demeanor unnerved him, as though the saint could sense his presence even from a distance. Just as the thief gathered his courage to make his move, something unexpected happened. Without turning his head, without even opening his eyes, Nagarjuna spoke. "Here, take this," Nagarjuna said softly, his voice calm and untroubled, as though he had known all along the thief was there. He held the golden begging bowl out in front of him, his arm outstretched toward the darkness where the thief hid. "That way, you won't disturb me once I have fallen asleep." The thief froze, his heart skipping a beat. For a moment, he didn't know what to do. How could this man, without even looking at him, know that he was there? And why would he offer the bowl so freely, without a fight, without even a hint of resistance? Cautiously, the thief stepped out from behind the column, his eyes wide with disbelief. He approached Nagarjuna slowly, as if afraid the offer might be a trick. But as he came closer, he saw the saint's face, a serene expression that held no malice, no fear, only peace. The thief reached out with trembling hands and took the golden bowl. It was heavy, more valuable than anything he had ever held before. His fingers gripped it tightly, feeling the cool metal against his skin. A rush of excitement coursed through him. He had the bowl. It was his. Without another word, the thief turned and ran, disappearing into the night with his newfound treasure. The night wore on, and the monastery ruins grew silent once more. Nagarjuna lay down to sleep, as peaceful as ever, undisturbed by the loss of his golden bowl. For him, The bowl had never held any real significance. It was just another object, no different from a leaf or a stone, and like all things in the material world, it was impermanent. As the thief made his way back through the forest, clutching the bowl to his chest, he could not shake the strange feeling that had settled over him. He had stolen many things in his life, but never like this. He had always prided himself on being quick, silent, and clever, taking what he wanted without anyone noticing. But this time was different. This time, the man had given the bowl freely, as if it meant nothing to him. The thief's excitement began to wane, replaced by a growing sense of confusion. Why would someone give away something so valuable without a second thought? Was it a trick? Was the bowl cursed? The thief shook his head, trying to dismiss the thoughts, but they nagged at him, refusing to let go. By the time he reached his small, dilapidated hut on the outskirts of the village, the thief's excitement had turned into frustration. He lit a small fire and sat by it, holding the bowl in his hands and staring at it. The gold gleamed in the firelight, beautiful and bright. But no matter how much he looked at it, the thief couldn't shake the feeling that it was worthless. What good was the bowl if it had been given away so easily? As the night wore on, the thief grew restless. He couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, couldn't think of anything but the strange encounter with the saint. The man had looked so peaceful, so untroubled, even as he gave away the most valuable thing he owned. It was as if the bowl meant nothing to him, nothing at all. By the time the first light of dawn crept over the horizon, the thief could no longer stand the turmoil inside him. He had to go back. He had to understand. The next morning, the thief returned to the ruins of the ancient monastery, the golden bowl clutched in his hands. His steps were slow, hesitant, as if he was unsure of what he was doing. The night had been long, and his mind was a whirlwind of questions he didn't know how to answer. When he arrived, he found Nagarjuna sitting in the same place, cross-legged and peaceful, as if nothing had changed. The saint looked up as the thief approached, his face calm and welcoming. The thief stood before him, holding out the golden bowl. "Here," he said, his voice trembling slightly. "Take it back." Nagarjuna smiled softly, but did not reach for the bowl. "Why do you return it?" he asked, his voice gentle. The thief hesitated, struggling to find the right words. "When you gave away this bowl so freely last night," he finally said, "you made me feel very poor. Teach me how to acquire the riches that make this kind of light-hearted detachment possible." Nagarjuna gazed at the thief, his smile still gentle, his eyes radiating calm. The thief stood before him, clutching the golden bowl, his knuckles white, not from the greed that had driven him before, but from the tension of his inner struggle. It was clear that he had spent a sleepless night, wrestling with the turmoil of a mind that had been turned upside down by a single act of generosity. "Sit," Nagarjuna said softly, motioning to the ground in front of him. The thief hesitated, but then slowly sat down, resting the golden bowl in his lap. The air was cool in the early morning, and the light of dawn painted the ancient ruins in soft hues of pink and gold. There was a strange serenity in the moment, a silence that seemed to stretch beyond time itself. "You asked me to teach you how to acquire the riches that allow one to let go so easily," Nagarjuna began, his voice calm and measured. "But you are already holding the answer in your hands." The thief looked down at the bowl in his lap, confusion etched on his face. "The bowl?" he asked, his voice betraying his uncertainty. "But it's just a bowl. A golden one, yes, but it is not the bowl that matters," Nagarjuna interrupted gently. "It is the act of giving it away. It is the freedom that comes from knowing that you are not bound by your possessions, not tied down by the things of this world. True wealth is not measured in gold or silver, but in the ability to be free from desire." The thief furrowed his brow, struggling to understand. He had spent his whole life chasing wealth, stealing what he could to survive, to elevate himself from the poverty he had known since childhood. To him, riches had always meant power, security, a way to escape the harshness of the world. But here was this man, this saint, telling him that wealth had nothing to do with material things. "But how can I be free from desire?" the thief asked, his voice tinged with frustration. "I've spent my whole life wanting, needing. If I don't chase after things, what will I have left?" Nagarjuna looked at him kindly. "You will have yourself," he said simply. "You will have your mind, your spirit, your inner peace. The greatest riches a person can have are not found outside of themselves, but within. The more you chase after things, the more you are enslaved by them. True freedom comes when you realize that you need nothing at all." The thief fell silent, staring down at the golden bowl in his hands. His mind was spinning with the weight of Nagarjuna's words. It was as if a door had been opened inside him, revealing a world he had never known existed. A world where wealth was not something you could touch or hold, but something that came from within. "But what about the life I've lived?" the thief asked quietly. "All the things I've stolen, all the people I've hurt. Can I just walk away from all of that? Can I be free of my past?" Nagarjuna studied the thief for a long moment, his gaze soft but penetrating. "Your past does not define you," he said. "It is only a collection of moments that have already passed, like the wind that blows and then is gone. What matters is what you do now, in this moment. You cannot change the past, but you can choose to live differently from this day forward." The thief's eyes flickered with uncertainty. His life had been filled with darkness, deception, theft, betrayal. He had always believed that once a person set down a path, they could not turn back. But Nagarjuna was telling him something different, something that stirred a small flame of hope within him. "You mean I can change?" the thief asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Change is the only constant in this world," Nagarjuna replied. "Even the tallest mountains will one day crumble into dust. You're no different. Every moment is a chance to begin anew, to let go of the burdens you carry and embrace the freedom that comes with detachment." For a long time, the thief sat in silence, turning Nagarjuna's words over in his mind. Could it really be that simple? Could he let go of the life he had known and walk a different path? The golden bowl in his lap seemed to grow heavier with each passing moment, its gleam no longer offering the allure of wealth, but instead serving as a reminder of the chains he had willingly worn for so long. "I want to change," the thief said finally, his voice firm but laced with vulnerability. "I want to let go of this, all of it, but I don't know how." Nagarjuna smiled, a warm and understanding smile. "The first step is to let go of the idea that you need to know how. The path will reveal itself as you walk it. But to begin, you must let go of what you hold most dear." The thief looked down at the golden bowl once more. It had been his treasure, his prize, the symbol of all he had sought to possess. But now, in the light of Nagarjuna's teachings, it felt like a burden. Slowly, almost reverently, he lifted the bowl in his hands and held it out to Nagarjuna. "Take it," the thief said, his voice steady. "I don't want it anymore." Nagarjuna looked at the bowl for a moment, then shook his head. "I have no need for it," he said. "The question is not whether I will take it, but whether you are ready to give it up." The thief stared at the bowl, his heart pounding in his chest. This was the moment when he would either cling to the life he had known or step into the unknown, into the freedom that Nagarjuna had spoken of. And then, with a deep breath, the thief stood up, walked over to the edge of the ruins, and placed the golden bowl on the ground. He took a step back, his heart racing, and then turned to face Nagarjuna. "It's done," the thief said, his voice quiet but resolute. Nagarjuna nodded, a look of approval in his eyes. "Now you are free." The thief felt a strange sensation wash over him, a lightness, a sense of relief that he had never known before. The bowl had been the symbol of his greed, his desire for wealth and power, but now, without it, he felt something far greater. He felt a sense of peace, of contentment, that came not from what he had, but from what he had let go. "I feel different," the thief said, his voice filled with wonder. "Lighter, somehow. That is the weight of attachment lifting from your shoulders," Nagarjuna said with a smile. "When you let go of your desire for things, you make space for something far more valuable, peace of mind." The thief looked out over the ruins, the golden bowl gleaming in the sunlight behind him, forgotten. He had come here as a man desperate for wealth, but he was leaving with something far more precious, freedom from the chains of his own desires. And so, the thief walked away from the ruins, his steps light, his heart free, ready to begin a new life.